This video is going to show you how to add more variety to your footage even after it's been shot. You'll also learn how to easily bring more life, more movement, more intensity to your edits, and I'll teach you how to pick your music tracks the right way. Because music is the first step and arguably the most important step of a great hype reel edit. So let's not waste any more time and get straight into it. Hey guys, my name is E. I'm a professional sports videographer and I'm here today to show you how to produce professional sports hype reels just as good as mine with basic editing skills. But right now, I'm sure you're at least a little bit curious to know how you can add more variety to your footage even after you're done filming. Well, let me show you what I mean. Here's an original clip from start to finish that I shot myself. And after a little bit of editing magic, here's what the same clip looks like. What's cool about this is that the average viewer casually watching this edit sees camera movements, cuts, even replays, when in reality it's just one camera angle, pretty wide and very basic. To get there, first of all, I filmed the action in 4K, but edited it in a 1080p sequence. This allows me to zoom into my clips without losing any quality. For example, in the first cut we see here, I went from a full-size wide shot of the snap to a zoomed-in shot of the QB dropping back and throwing the ball. So the first clip acts as an establishing shot, letting you know the context of the play, and the second clip is making the viewer focus totally on the main part of the action. By the way, it's important to mention that I also used this cut to get rid of some unnecessary footage. You see, in the original clip, the quarterback fakes a handoff to the running back before dropping back. But I decided to use the cut to my advantage and go straight from the snap to the passing motion. It's a subtle change that can make a big difference if you keep using this technique throughout your edit, because getting rid of all the downtime along the way makes every play happen faster and ultimately makes your edit shorter and more action-packed. In the second clip, since I was fully zoomed in, I made the most of it by tracking the ball during the pass, because otherwise, if I had simply left the clip centered, it would have looked like this. But using the guides in my program window and the position keyframes in the effect controls panel, I'm able to keep all the action in frame and make myself look like a much better cameraman than I actually am. The second cut does the same thing as the previous one, but in reverse. We go from tight to wide, getting rid of a few unnecessary frames in the process. And it's really just a few frames, basically from the catch to the receiver planting his feet, so we're talking 6 or 7 frame stops. In the third clip, I'm zooming in and out of my 4K footage again, but this time I'm making it look like camera movements. So first off, I did a bit of speed ramping to really show off the moment where the receiver breaks a tackle and when he scores his touchdown. And then, using an adjustment layer, I added a transform effect to zoom in when the footage slows down and zoom out when it goes back to normal speed. I'm using a transform effect instead of doing it on the clip itself because it allows me to change the shutter angle. Adjusting the shutter angle allows me to add motion blur to my zooming motions and make them look much more realistic. For example, this is what it looks like with 0 shutter angle. But when I adjust the shutter angle to 180, you can see the difference straight away. It looks a bit intense frame by frame, but in real time, it looks exactly like a true camera zoom. With my last cut, I again went from wide to tight, but this time I actually went back in time a little bit with the tight shot to make it look like an instant replay. And then I went back to normal speed at the exact same time as the player hit the ground so that it almost feels like it's the impact itself that brought the footage back to that speed. And that's what we often mean when we talk about storytelling in sports videos. It's not always about telling the story of a game with a beginning, middle, and end. Sometimes it's just about embracing the action and making it look cooler than it is with well-timed camera movements, cuts, and slow motion. But to tell an even better story, of course I added sound effects throughout the edit, which all come from my Ultimate Sports sound effects pack. And lastly, before we move on to the next edit, You guys probably didn't notice because I'm very subtle with these things, but there's actually a visual effect in there. I used the sparks effect from my Sports Impact Essentials to make it look like some of the turf sort of exploded on impact. I simply added the sparks over the footage, used position keyframes to track my camera movement, and added a tint effect to turn the sparks blue just like the turf in the end zone. With my next edit, I want to show you how easy it is to improve your hype reels even more with my brand new visual effects bundle. And I also want to teach you how to pick and edit your music tracks.
Time to get paid, blow, time to get paid, time to get paid, blow up like I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know, I'm blowing up. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know, I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know, I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know, look at the spin and the finish from Milton.
Magni gets upstairs on the loss. Oh, Holland to the hook.
Turnover, Kelly with the jam. Right, he's got that 3 ball and he's going.
Blow up like the world train.
I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know, I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know, I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know,
Blowing up.
Alright, so I'm not gonna go through the entire edit this time, but let's take a look at the visual effects. For example, here I used the cartoon effect from my Sports Impact Essentials to exaggerate the impact of the dunk. Once I drag the effect on top of my footage, all I have to do is adjust the speed and position with a few keyframes, and that is it. Same thing here with another Sport Impact Essential. This time I went with the water splash, which is perfect for 3-point shots, especially if you add a sound effect as well. The other pack in my VFX bundle is called Dynamic Sports Markers and Scribbles, and I like to use those to add an extra layer of excitement to the action. For example, the happy and angry faces I use on the basketball to make it look more engaging. And also the flexing arms I applied to the skid to, again, exaggerate the whole thing. These effects are just as easy to use as the impacts, if not easier. You just adjust the position, scale, and rotation if need be, and the job is done. So if you'd like to purchase my VFX packs separately or together as a bundle to save some money, or even if you want to buy my sound effects pack, or even my LUT pack for that matter, everything is available in the description down below. Alright, now let's talk music, because that's a subject that comes up a lot with up-and-coming sports videographers. Everybody wants to know how to pick the right track for their hype reels, where to find it, all that good stuff. So first of all, if you are looking for royalty-free music, ARTLIST is where it's at, in my opinion. They've come a long way through the years. They have a lot of variety now with new songs popping up on a regular basis. There's even an instrumental version for almost every track. And I'll explain why that's important in a minute. But what I also like is that you can get an affordable subscription that covers your client work. So if you use one of their tracks for a hype reel that you did for a client or a school, and that client or school posts that video on their socials, they won't get in any trouble. Which is not always the case with other royalty-free music libraries. But whether you're looking for royalty-free music or mainstream popular music, the goal is always to find the right track for your video and avoid the one big mistake that everybody makes. But don't worry, I used to do it too. In fact, the biggest tip I can give you about music is to forget about your personal preference, forget genres, forget the type of music that you like, and instead focus on the story that you're trying to tell. Because your favorite song is not necessarily your client's favorite song, and even a track that you liked in someone else's video is not necessarily going to work in yours. Maybe because it's a different sport, or a different age group, or a different editing style, or simply because it's a different story. That's why finding the right mood, the right emotion for your story is going to be a lot easier than trying to find the perfect song. So when I search the ARTLIST library for a new track, I usually start by browsing by mood and then just go from there for inspiration. And when I find a track that I like but is not quite what I'm after, I click the similar song button, which reveals a bunch of other tracks very similar to that first one and saves me a lot of time. Eventually, I might have to repeat that process once or twice before I find the right track, but unfortunately, finding the right track is not exactly the end of that process. For example, with this edit, I knew I was going for fast-paced, action-packed, lots of movements, lots of visual stimulation. So something too dramatic, something too slow was not gonna cut it. That's why I went with a track that is happy, energetic, and also very relatable to most basketball fans. But the job doesn't end there. The next step is to edit the music track according to my needs. For example, in this case, I didn't want to use any of the verses because they're full of profanity. And, this hype reel is playing at a professional basketball game. It's a family-friendly event, so profanity is not an option. But at the same time, I didn't want to use the hook part of the song over and over and over. So that's when having access to the instrumental version of a track comes in very handy. Because that way I'm able to switch things up a little bit by putting a segment of instrumental in the middle and cover it up with game commentary, only to bring back the hook at the end to finish it strong. And speaking of finish, I didn't want the audio to just fade away at the end because you always want to finish a hype reel on a bang, so I added an explosion sound effect timed well with the music track and with the visuals to make it look and sound like an impactful ending. Alright, so like I said before, all the tools I mentioned in this video, from my digital packs to the ARTLIST subscription, everything is available in the description down below. Again, my name is E, and I will catch you in my next video, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Otherwise, I hope this video was helpful in taking you one step closer to your sports videography dreams.